This episode of New Media Lab is brought to you by thepodcastprofs.com. Tired of putting out show after show when you feel like no one is listening? It's time to be heard. If you feel like you're ready to treat your podcast like a real business, hiring the Podcast Profs can help you grow and attract an audience much faster and greatly increase your chance to meet your podcast dreams. We're not a marketing agency that does the work for you. We teach you how to do it for yourself and coach you through the process. One-on-one and group coaching available. Go to thepodcastprofs.com and set up a free consultation today. Welcome back to the third season of New Media Lab. I'm Rob Southgate. I am so excited to be here. For years, I've struggled with what this show is, how to define it. I had an idea, and it kind of evolved over time, and then I kept getting stalled. Well, I finally have an idea. I finally have something that I feel really good about. I'm going to try something on here. I'm going to try to define it, and let's see how this works. Now, I wrote it out, so it might sound like I'm reading it. New Media Lab is a podcast for marketing content creators so that they can gain insights and learn about various marketing techniques from other creators, coaches, and marketers. New Media Lab is a safe space where professionals and hobbyists can come together and share ideas without judgment. Okay, already, just reading that, I realize there's a lot more that I want to add. But I think that's pretty concise and should help give some focus for this season at least. The week after New Year's, there were a bunch of looking ahead to 2023 and what's changing in 2023 articles out there. Hell, I even wrote one which I'll put in the link to this show. One that I read was from the newsletter Podcast Marketing Magic by Arielle Nissenblatt and Lauren Passell. What I like about it is that they break down what they think is in and what is out for 2023 for podcast marketing. I also like that their ideas are not confined simply to podcasting for the most part. YouTubers, bloggers, TikTokers, really any content creator out there will get ideas from this article. What happens often when I read these lists is I find myself reflecting on what I'm doing. What should be in and out for my strategy? What should I change in 2023? I found this to be a great list and decided to invite them on to talk about it. Lauren, Arielle, thank you so much for being on New Media Lab. I am so excited to talk to you. We are podcast nerds, so I can tell by reading through your blog that you're podcast nerds. So it's really fun to talk to other marketers, people that are into the same kind of thing, that are not just podcasters going, help me. So I found this article that you guys wrote, and it is for Podcast Marketing Magic. That is one of the blogs you write for, correct?
Yes, they're newsletters, podcast the newsletter and Podcast Marketing Magic, but also Arielle has another newsletter called Feedback with Earbuds. So we are writing all over the place.
Awesome. I subscribe to all three.
Yay.
So yes,
Thank
and
you.
I will be sharing those articles out there. And for anybody listening, I'll put links in the show notes so they can go on and subscribe as well, because your stuff is great. I love the insight that you have. Now, I don't know anything about the two of you, so this is kind of a blind interview.
Yay.
What is your relationship with podcasting?
Oh, man. Well, first we have to say this. We're going to interrupt each other
We do.
a lot.
We
But
do.
that
It's our
means-
vibe.
Yeah, it's our vibe. And we tried not to do it once, and it was a disaster. We were like trying to be polite one time and saying,
It was
"You're trying to-"
boring.
No, it's boring. We interrupt each other. It means we love each other. But man, I mean, I don't know. I knew Arielle on Twitter, and I started a podcast marketing company called Tink, and I had a big project coming up. I had met her once, and you meet Arielle once, and she is so sparkling. It is like an unforgettable experience. I'm embarrassing her, and I needed help with this project, and I was like, I don't even know who could do this, but there is only one person who might be able to, and it's Arielle. And so I reached out to her. It was 2 years ago. We've been working together ever since. That one project went on to many, many more. Now the Tink team has 7 people on it. And we work together for a lot of really exciting projects to help podcasters grow. And Podcast Marketing Magic is the newsletter that has to do, you know, the Tink team contributes a lot of that. So that's kind of, you know, Arielle and I, you know, consult people about podcasting. We pitch our clients to be featured on apps. We help them grow by setting up meaningful partnerships. I mean, we do a million things. Arielle, what did I forget?
Yeah.
What did she forget, Arielle?
What's funny is that Lauren said that I'm sparkly, which first of all, thank you. But Lauren was literally wearing sparkles on her face when we met. So maybe that's where that adjective came.
Sparkles. You sparkle
So she was seeing the sparkles reflect back on her.
I think that's right.
And yeah, no, I find both of you very sparkling. So
Aw.
we find you sparkling. Go on.
Well, that's my receding hairline and the light hitting it. You know, I'm a podcaster, so I definitely have that. I love the blog, and actually it's funny, I didn't know you were Tink as well, but I was just reading a Tink thing that I shared on one of the groups that I run as well. Oh boy, we run the risk of things crashing on me. Let's find out. I can look while I talk. So this article that you guys wrote, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about going forward. I have a feeling this is not the last time we're going to talk either.
I hope not.
No. And in fact, I should say here that we could put a link to your consulting in the show notes as well. Anybody that's listening to me also knows that I do the same thing. I run the Podcast Profs, which is, instead of being an agency that does it for you, I teach people. And, you know, when you have 10 plus years experience, and I was executive producer on over 125 shows.
Ooh.
You start to know a few things about it, right?
Yeah, you pick up things. Yeah, we do this thing called podcast therapy, which it's just consulting, but it sounds really fun because it is really fun. Like,
and people do need therapy when it comes to like, why is my podcast not growing? I'm working so hard. Why is it not growing? So people do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's funny because what I do, I always say it's coaching and consulting, because consulting, you're just kind of telling people what to do. But coaching, you're kind of, why? Let's talk about it. What's your relationship with this? And yeah, so I think we may have a partnership in the future here.
Yeah,
I feel something happening.
I love this energy already.
So the article that we shared was 2023 Podcast Marketing Insights. And I don't know if that's a Tink thing, but there's a huge Tink ad on it.
Yeah, that's us.
That's the most recent article.
Yeah, we reached out to a lot of people that we know in the industry and asked them for their predictions and put it all together. So that one that was more of a group think from the people that we know, but we have a lot of posts about tips and all those sort of things. But
you know what? I'm gonna give you some branding right here. Call it Tink Think. It's yours.
Oh, I love that.
Ooh, Tink Think Tank.
Think Tank.
Now we're getting even deeper on this one.
Thank you so
Tink
much.
Tank doesn't sound like what you want it to. So, okay, ins and outs. This is what you guys are seeing as in 2023, and stuff we can throw out that was still happening in 2022.
Yeah.
There's some big ones here. I mean, I agree with what you've written here. In fact, some
you
of
can
it is stuff
disagree
I've been,
too, you know?
Well, I don't, though. Some of it is stuff I've been beating the drum about for years. When we had all of our podcasters working for us, I was always saying things like, we need transcripts for every episode. I was saying things like, we need to have a newsletter, and we need to, you know, there's so many advantages to that. People that listen to my show know that I'm a broken record with this stuff. And you laid it out here going, this is in. Like, do these things.
Well, like, can I give the background on why we decided to write it
Please.
in this way? So Lauren and I have a favorite restaurant. It's called Mala Project. And we love to do free branding for them, free marketing for them, because we truly love this restaurant so much. And then every time we go, we tell them that we do free marketing for them, and then they usually give us a free appetizer. So this is more.
I love it.
We were there a few weeks ago. I want to say it was a Thursday night. We were having dinner. And whenever we get together, it is like rapid fire ideas. Like nobody stops talking for however long we're eating.
Yeah.
And I was scrolling on Facebook earlier that day, and I saw that a friend of a friend posted their ins and outs from 2022 to 2023. And I was like, we should see what that might look like for podcast marketing. And so throughout the dinner, we just opened a notes app and we're just jotting down ideas. And then we put it together. And really, that's how it came to be. It went out the next day. We wrote it in one day, because these are things, like you said, that you're beating the drum about. We are always beating the drum about. So it's pretty easy for us to come up with things that we believe are just donezo, and other things we believe that should continue to be embraced or improved upon.
Yeah. And yeah, this would not have happened without Arielle. That was her, like, because she notices trends. That's one thing that she's really good at. And so definitely that format, I think, made it really fun. But the funny thing that happened was some of them, we beat the drum on these so much that some of them, we were kind of like, is this too obvious? You know, like we say it so many times. We've been saying
Like
it
it's
for
not
so
going to be
long.
news. And we were like, we don't care actually that it's not
Right.
news.
And one of them actually, I think, Arielle, you were the one that said, out is criticizing podcast hosts for their natural voices.
Yeah.
And I actually was like, oh man, I hope people don't do that anymore. I was like, is that too out? And we did it. And I actually got 2 emails thanking us for that tip. I don't even think I told you that, Arielle. Like, so it's sometimes hard to think, what do people still need to be hearing about? What hasn't
well, I think that when I look it over, I see the same thing. And so next year, when you put this, if you still are hearing people doing this criticizing, it goes on the out list again. And you're in stuff like newsletters. My God. I mean, for 10 years, I've been telling people to do newsletters. And I feel like finally now I'm starting to see some Substack newsletters out there. Thank God.
Yeah.
I do see them doing it incorrectly for their SEO, but hey, that's why you hire consultants on that to go, yeah, fix your SEO. Here's how you do it. So yeah, I love that. And looking for trends, I'm sure, Arielle, you're like me, since you're the trend guru. You probably listen to everything, right?
Lauren does too. Yeah. We're
Do you?
big listeners. Yep. We
So,
listen to,
I mean,
combined, we cover a good chunk of podcasts that come out every single week. I mean, of course, we could never touch all of them, but we listen to 40 hours a week each.
That's what started it for me, was the immediate addiction to it. And back when I first started listening to podcasts, there were a handful, it felt like, and then as they grew, it was like, oh my gosh, how do I fit them all in? And now, I mean, it's ridiculous, but I still, tell me if this happens for you. I still fall into the binge.
Oh, for sure.
Where it's like, I need to listen to all these new shows and hear what they're doing. And then crap, I just listened to 15 episodes of this one podcast because it was awesome.
Yeah, my listening habits are, I have my dailies, morning, midday, evening, and then I have my weeklies, and then I also have the series that I will usually sit down, not sit. I can't listen while I'm sitting. I'll walk around, clean, go for a jog, whatever it is, and then that's when I'm doing the series. So it's usually daily, weekly, series, and then the series switch out every week or whenever something new drops.
You're very organized with this, much more so than I am. I usually go, ooh, it caught my fancy. And this brings me to one of your ins, which I really dug, creating miniseries within a larger season. You said this builds buzz around your show and keeps it newsy. I love that because, I deal with a lot of people that make podcasts within our network that were doing things where they'd watch a show. They'd watch Supernatural and they do a show about Supernatural, right? And it seems like, oh, well, I'm just doing week to week. How do you create something different? But you can create miniseries even within that. If you're doing a show about true crime, you can create miniseries in there. You could focus it like this show. I have some miniseries coming up that are specific. We're going to only talk about Instagram for 3 episodes, and boom, it's just this little contained thing. I love that suggestion. Now, is that something you've been noticing people doing, or is it your wish list you wish people would do?
I think we've been seeing it more and encouraging our clients to do it more, certainly, and hoping it into existence. But I definitely have been noticing it more. It's like, as marketers, we think it's okay to create your own excitement and create your own event so that people have something to grab onto, so it's just really, I think it both creates good content and helps you find new listeners.
I agree. I've noticed in my listening habits that when I find a show that I start falling into a binge, like you said, if I see a little clump of things where they're talking about a specific thing, I tend to go to those first because I feel like I'm going to dig in a little bit, So I think that's really sage advice. I think that's something that podcasters, and see, I in the intro that we don't know if I actually have, because the listener doesn't know this, but my computer crashed just before I talked to you. So in the missing intro, hopefully I'll remember to put this in there. I talked about how this advice also works for YouTubers. It works for people using social media. If you're an Instagrammer and you're like, I tell my stories or whatever, this works. Create a mini series within your Instagram posts. It's such a great idea that gives people something to latch onto. So once
Yeah,
again,
it
I
also
can't say
can
enough good things here.
Yeah, it also can get people out of a creative rut. And, we are pitching, newsletter writers and media digital writers, other bloggers, people in print media all the time. And it's much easier if we can say, Self-Evident is doing a 5-part series that's telling the story about a woman immigrant. That is not our client, but that Self-Evident is an example of a show that just did a wonderful, beautiful miniseries. And they had a press release about the miniseries. They treated it like it was almost like a new show, like a new project.
Yeah.
So I think, really making a plan for it, thinking in advance, who needs to know about this? What's the schedule for how we market it? Really treating it with a lot of care.
Graphic assets too. It's an opportunity to not just rebrand or package something sonically, but also you can create artwork surrounding this and then throw that up all on social media, use that in your press releases, everything.
Yeah. And newsletters, people are always asking us, how do you launch a podcast from scratch if you don't have inventory to work with and downloads? And the thing that you need to rely on is the newness that you have. That's very cool. And that is something that newsletter writers want and that apps want when you're applying to be featured in apps. So if you've been going for a while, you don't have the newness anymore, but you can create a newness with the series. So apps might want to know about that series that you're doing. And newsletter writers like me, hello, I love hearing about new series. That catches my attention. I get a lot of pitches. If it's a series, it catches my attention.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that a lot of podcasters that I encounter miss out on is they get going and then they have no idea what they can pitch, because it's like, well, we're going to talk about this again this week. We always talk about movies. What am I going to say? This week we're talking about Avatar 2. Everybody's talking about Avatar 2. Yeah, but if you have a mini series, if you have something focused, even if it's within the larger context, you're not going to send it out every single week. But man, if you can get 3-4 times a year that you have a mini series, oh boy, you're going to stay in the public eye with that. People are going to latch onto it.
Yeah. And if you're looking for ideas for your miniseries, I would look at like big shows and just see what they're doing, because they've probably done a ton of research and they have paid a lot of people a lot of money to figure out that that's the right move. And like, for example, there's a podcast called Come As You Are, and it's a sex podcast from Pushkin. And it's not so much a series. Well, it's not a series in a row, but they're going to start releasing episodes where the host watches TV scenes, and comments upon how, accurate they are and how positive they are when it comes to how sex is treated on screen. And you could think, okay, what's my version of that? How am I going to comment on pop culture or something? I would look at other podcasts doing series and special things. And if you like them, think, what is my version of that?
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to go to another one here. Transcripts. I mentioned it earlier. This is one of those, I've been pushing it up a hill forever. I think where people get stuck is where they get it done. I always tell them, go to Descript. I think they do a great job. A lot of people tell me to use YouTube, but I find it harder to transcribe that. I think that going to Descript, what do you guys use for transcription? Or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I use Trint, Trint.
I don't know Trint.
I think it's great. I have also used Descript. I also, you can also use an audiogram creator that automatically transcribes. So there's one called Recast. It's recast.studio. And what it'll do is you upload the episode, and there's a free version that allows you to upload X number of minutes, but it will transcribe for you. And then you can grab that transcription, and it is pretty accurate.
Good. With multiple voices as well?
Yeah.
Oh, see,
it's
these
really
are
great.
pro tips. We're going to have to put more links in the show notes here, aren't we?
Yeah.
So when you guys get your transcripts, this is something that people are going to ask. What do you do with them? Do you put them in the show notes? You use them as the blog post? What do you prefer to do with them?
What I do with the Squadcast podcast, I work full-time at Squadcast, which is a remote recording platform that helps podcasters record in studio quality audio and video. We have a weekly podcast called the Squadcast Podcast, and what we do with our transcripts is on our website. So if you go to squadcast.fm/podcast, you can see the show notes as they are embedded from Buzzsprout, which is our host. And then under that, you can see the transcript. We do not put the transcript directly in the show notes, so that if you were to go to our page on Buzzsprout, you wouldn't see them there. But if you go to Squadcast, essentially, if you go to our podcast landing page, you can get the transcript right there. And the point of that is that we want to make sure that it's extremely accessible, and we don't always believe that people are going to Buzzsprout to look at our podcast, to listen to our podcast, and to read the show notes on our podcast. But the most trafficked place where people are clicking play on the show is the squadcast.fm/podcast, our website, our webpage dedicated to the podcast. We do not want to put any barriers to people who want to view the transcript. So we make it as easy as possible to get there.
Now, do you, as bloggers, I know that you have to do a lot with SEO, and you have to be cognizant of H1 tags and all that other fun stuff. Do you mess with your SEO on your transcripts, or do you pretty much get it as accurate as you can and put it up there?
I don't personally for the Squadcast podcast. I have somebody else who does. Shout out to Alex Wedby. He's very good at that. But yes, it is definitely a consideration. For my personal podcast, which is a podcast recommendation podcast, I do futz around a little bit with the H1 tags and things like that, but I don't use anchor text or anything like that.
Great. Love it. Those of you that are already doing transcripts and that are messing around with SEO are going to love that answer. Those of you that don't, this gives you something to really look at. So let's go to out. Let's do that. Not having a trailer with your launch plan.
Ooh.
That's a good one. Nice and juicy. So who came up with that one?
Both of us, I think.
Yeah.
We're big trailer heads. I don't know. I go on a lot of road trips with friends, and I, on those road trips, try to convince people to listen to podcasts. And one of the ways that we test out a podcast is through the trailer. And if your trailer either doesn't exist or is not reflective of the actual show within, it's not going to be a great reflection, right? So either we won't listen because there's no trailer for us to test it, or we're going to listen and we like the trailer, but then the podcast has nothing to do with the trailer, or the tone is off, or the trailer was terrible, so we stop right there, but then the show is actually good. So it's really important to not only have a trailer, but make sure that it is doing what you hope it's doing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just going to say it's a good way to, let people test out what they're about to get into. But also from a marketing standpoint, we kind of recommend, I mean, there's no rule, but dropping it about 2 weeks before episode 1. That's what we usually say. And that gives us 2 weeks to get that trailer out there and push and say, listen to all you, we're asking is that you listen to this trailer and mention it in your newsletter, mention it on your podcast, do a promo swap with us on this day. And so we've created a celebration event, which is the day that episode 1 drops. And using the teaser is the easiest way to send someone something to listen to without having to send them a file that they have to download or something. Just like click here, listen, and let's get ready to celebrate together when episode 1 drops.
Yeah, you got my mind spinning here because I'm thinking back to the mini-series thing. There's another opportunity to create a trailer when you're going to do one. Send that trailer out. Let your listeners know if you've already got a newsletter or you've already got a fan base. If you have a trailer for that and it's getting that out there, boy, it's going to put it in their head. I know that that's been effective on my end for me, or toward me, I should say, when I've heard something and I'm like, oh yeah, this is coming. I want to make sure I don't miss out on this. Very effective.
It's also the podcast listening apps oftentimes will give a space for a trailer to exist. Apple Podcasts, for example, a few years ago started really prioritizing the trailer. So if you go to any podcast quote unquote landing page on Apple Podcasts and they have a trailer, it'll say start with the trailer or play the trailer or something like that. And that's a really easy way for you to say, hey, I'm Arielle and I'm Lauren, and on this show we're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's a really great way for you to just introduce yourself to your potential listeners.
Yeah. There's another byproduct here. I mentioned those groups that I run. One of the things I do is
One of them you're going to love. I'm going to save that one. But one of them is Promo Exchange. And I encourage everybody, go on here. If you have a promo, if you have a trailer, post it on here and get other shows that fit your niche or that you think you might share an audience with. Share their promo, you share that back. And I mean, let's face it, the more people are aware of your show that are in a similar niche, the better off it is for everybody.
Yeah, if we totally agree with you. In fact, if you go to tinkmedia.co, we built a database so that people can find people to work with for promos. So you should submit your show, but also if you go in, you can, add tags, search the tags and about how big the shows are. And you can find what we call your podcast friends. And then you can figure out how to go on a podcast play date with your friends, which is, there's so many different ways you can work together. We just want to connect these people. We want to make it as easy as possible for other podcasters to connect. And I get so many people emailing me about success stories and tweeting about success stories that they have from making a meaningful partnership in this database. So I recommend that everyone, puts their own podcast in there, and I use it for my clients. I look at it every day.
I absolutely love it. So before I turn the ball over to you guys, I got two more. I told you I love this article. I got two more outs that I want to bring up. One is, and this one makes me crazy, microphones and headphones in your cover art. Stop it. Stop it. I think the problem though is people think I have to display that I'm a podcast.
Right.
But my God.
We know.
My God. That one gets me. And the other one that gets me is the really tiny text on the artwork.
Yes.
It's like, blow it out, make it huge. I mean, so we can read what the hell it is. That
First
makes
of all,
me
just
crazy.
ask one person they think of your cover art before you make it go live. Ask a few people. That really will help people a lot.
Yeah.
That'll help you.
Or also, I would ask people who don't know what your show is. Can you tell
what is my show about?
What vibes is this giving off? Do you want to listen to this? Do you think that it's grim? Do you think that it's happy? What is the tone? And if you're off, then it might be time to go back to the drawing board, even if it is a little bit expensive, or even if you really wanted to launch right now, you might have to wait a week because it's worth it to get it right.
Really important. We judge books by covers. It's so important.
My friend Albin Brook at Buzzsprout, he says, we don't put video equipment on movie posters.
But maybe we'll start because I don't know it's a movie unless I see that on there.
So confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is such a good one. And then the other one, and this is a personal beef, the unethical or gossip-minded true crime. I'm going to add to that the true crime, the people that fetishize it, oh, I wish I was murdered by this person. I've heard people say that. I go,
oh,
no, you don't. And think of all the people that are affected by this. I like a true crime podcast that tells a compelling story and has some resolution, hopefully. But damn, I can't stand it when they, promote it like this is a good thing or the serial killer's awesome, or like you said, it's all gossipy, and you go, there
are real people's families who are still alive, who are affected by this. And
ethical true crime exists. And Arielle, you know what I'm going to say?
Yes, I do. Crime Writers On.
Crime Writers On is a podcast hosted by our friend Rebecca Lavoie, and it is a review of true crime, and it's a lot of true crime podcasts, but other kinds of true crime. And Rebecca is a tastemaker and has great taste, and her panel of co-hosts break down everything, and they're
amazing.
They're amazing.
Yes. You want to be best friends with them. It's one of those shows that you're like, oh, I bet they're going to love this show. I bet they're going to hate this show. What are they going to think of this one? It's great. I listen to everything that they recommend.
Yeah.
Ooh, fantastic. I just found something I want to listen to. And once again, I'll put this in the show notes. That's another important thing. I don't know if you put it in here, but you do talk in here about recommending other shows, bringing their names up. And it's so important. Give them that shout out. Let them know you gave them the shout out.
Yeah. My cheesy advice is give more than you're expecting to receive, because it'll come back and people will think about you and people will want to do nice things for you just because you did nice things for them.
Yeah,
cheesy, 100%. But true.
Yes.
I think that's my brand, is cheesy, but true.
I see a new podcast in your future. So what are there any ins that you guys, like, you read them when you went, oh, we got to talk about this?
I
All
think,
of them, right?
well, yes, but I really like the prioritizing the pre-pitch. I think that's something we've been talking a lot about, how before you pitch someone and ask them to write about you, develop a friendship with them first, follow them on social media, read their newsletters so that when you come at them with an ask, you're not a stranger, I think, or even going out to someone who writes and saying, hi, how do you like to be pitched? No one does that to us. And it means a lot when they do, so.
And when they do, it's because they've heard us talk about it on podcasts like this.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love that.
Yeah, I love that. That's an absolutely excellent one. Once again, I think we're getting further into the marketer area, which is what the space we're in. The people that are the hobbyists that are like, pitch, who am I pitching to? They might not connect with that, but man, once they understand, like,
Everything is a
I need to
pitch.
pitch. Yeah, then they understand, wow, this is super important what you're saying.
If you don't want to use the word pitch, another word is the ask. What's the ask?
Yeah.
Pitch might sound too intense, but even asking another podcaster to do a promo swap with you, that's a pitch, right?
Yeah.
You got to come at them with the right ask.
Yeah. Well,
everything is a pitch. You asking us to be on your show was a pitch. Us asking to change the time was another pitch. It all has to do with how you put something out there and how somebody else receives it.
Yep. And it's funny because the big question that I get all the time, I get it on the sites, I get it from the podcasters I work with. How do you get guests? You know what? It's the pitch. You got to think it out ahead of time as well. And you got to know, I've gotten some big gets just by making a relationship, following them on Twitter, liking their things. And all of a sudden we're in a little bit of communication. And then when I say, hey, I've got a podcast, is there any chance? All of a sudden I've got Doug Jones sitting here talking to me. And my God, it's the greatest thing ever. So I think that prioritizing the pre-pitch is vital. You got another one for me? Or do you want to talk about an out?
Let's talk about an in. I feel like we should end it on a good note, right? We should end
Let's
it
do
on
it.
a high. Lauren, do you have a favorite that you wanted to bring up?
I mean, I picked prioritizing the pre-pitch. What is your favorite?
Okay, my favorite. I mean, I guess let's talk about crediting all of the people who work on your podcast. I think that is huge. And I think, a lot of the hobbyists will say it's only me or it's me and my co-host. You still deserve your flowers. So don't just sign off, but say this podcast is written by me. The music is by this royalty-free website. You can shout them out. We are hosted on Buzzsprout. We record using Squadcast. I would talk about all of those things. Number one, because it shows that there's a team. Even if the team is software, there are still people who make that software who help this thing happen. But also it legitimizes you. And you never know. It could be that Squadcast will hear about it using the new Podchaser alert system. And we'll see now that you mention us in your outro. And then we might want to give you a free recording hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know about this, Podchaser alerts?
I do not know Podchaser.
Oh my gosh,
alerts.
this is my new favorite thing. So if you go to podchaser.com/alerts.
Yes, been there before, but have not signed up.
Yes, it's great. So it's free. You can sign up for one alert for free. And so I put Squadcast FM so that now every day I get an email that gives me a list of all the podcasts that have used that word. And it does that by transcribing. And then I can go check out those podcasts. I can listen to the point in the show. It gives you the timestamp where your show was mentioned or where your term or phrase was mentioned, word, whatever. And then I can see if it was a good context or a bad context. And if it's good, then I can be like, hey, thanks so much for mentioning us. I can find their email address somehow. And I can maybe give them a free hour of recording. Or if it was bad, I can say, what can we do differently? So, and you could set it for your name. You could set it for a search for a term that you think is trending that you might want to be talking about. I really recommend setting up a free Podchaser alert.
I'm going to do it the minute we're done here. So Lauren, Arielle, we're going to wrap this session up, but I can tell you, I am definitely going to want to invite you back on. I think it's important that people find out what you guys have to say and subscribe to your newsletter. We'll put that in the show notes, as we've talked about. Podcast Marketing Magic. What were the other ones? Tink. I can't remember the third thing we talked about. I subscribe to a podcast.
Podcast the newsletter is another one.
Feedback with earbuds.
Yeah. So subscribe to all of them. That's what I do. And there's just great articles, lots of stuff to chew on here. And reach out if you have questions, if you want to hire Tink, if you want to get involved. We are of the same mindset. So I think this is a wonderful little partnership that we're forming here. And where else? You know what? I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm going to cut this part out. I was going to say, where else can they find you? But you know what? Nobody
Google me.
jots it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. So I will put contact information in the show notes as well. That's probably the best way. I mean, we sit here and talk about them, but does anybody like quickly, oh, I got to find Lauren on here because we don't know how to spell it. They go to the show notes and click on it. So that's what we'll do for you. Thank you guys. You don't know this, but you were the inaugural guest for season 3 of New Media Lab, a show that frankly, I've been very disappointed with for 2 seasons because I couldn't figure out what I wanted out of it. And I just did. You were the first ones I invited on. And guess what? I think the format worked. I love it.
I love it.
So
Yeah, that was fun.
Arielle, Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for reaching out and hope to stay in touch.
We love being on shows together. So this
We
is really
do.
great.
We really do. Yeah.
Awesome. Book them, everybody.
There are so many great ideas in that interview. I have listened to it multiple times, and each time I pick out something new. So what are your biggest takeaways? What inspired you and made you realize it's time for a change? Share your thoughts in the New Media Lab Facebook page. I'll put a discussion thread up for this episode, so watch for it there. Be active, ask questions, get some engagement going. It's going to make the experience better for all of us. I'll also put the links discussed with Lauren and Arielle in the show notes. There were a lot, and they're all worth checking out. I'll include a link to Mic Drop, my new newsletter on Substack. Get marketing tips, podcasting insights, recommendations, resources, and so much more by subscribing to Mic Drop. Thanks again, Lauren and Arielle, for coming on and sharing your wonderful insights. I had such a great time talking with you guys. Be sure to subscribe to their newsletters, Podcast Marketing Magic, Podcast, the newsletter, and Earbuds Podcast Collective at the links that I put in the show notes. I know I have. If you'd like to work with Lauren and Arielle, go to tinkmedia.co and get in touch today. It is worth your time. If you'd like to work with me, go to thepodcastprofs.com or southgatesmallbusiness.com and book a free session today. I would love to coach you so you can start marketing like the pros. If you'd like to check out my podcast network and all the shows I've produced over the last 11 years, you can find that at southgatemediagroup.com. New Media Lab is hosted, edited, and produced by me, Rob Southgate. If you'd like to get in touch with me, to be a guest or ask a question or maybe contribute, you can email me directly at rob@thepodcastprofs.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and happy marketing.